That cliffhanger is nasty. Like, very nasty. Like, you pumped me up. And I am just really getting into this episode. And when you end on a cliffhanger like that, that's disgusting as fuck, man. Like, don't do that shit to me. Ugh. Baby steps. Always fucking great. It's always great. So, the best way to sum this episode up is Eii-chan getting the Eii-chan treatment. I think that is the best way to really summarize this episode. Like, if you think about it, that's what the entire episode was. Eii-chan getting Eii-chan. Because Nabai, as we know, he's very similar to Eii-chan in some of his tactics and the way he, breaks his opponents in, battles and matches. That's kind of what was going on in this. For instance, Eii-chan was just being broken apart. Like, his entire foundation of his tennis was just being broken apart, and Nabai was just undoing it to where he can beat him and use his tactics that Eii-chan uses against other people. And it's just a crazy different outlook to this episode than normal episodes of Baby Steps, because majority of the time when we are watching Baby Steps, we're seeing it from Eii-chan's perspective of how he breaks his opponents with his tactics, of how he changes the pace up, to how he figures out their playstyle, and then he uses their weaknesses in their playstyle to be able to win against him. That's kind of what Eii-chan always does. And in a sense, this episode was telling two different perspectives. It was actually telling the perspective of Eii-chan and Nabai. Nabai actually had his own inner monologues with this episode, which was surprising to me, because not many characters, which is actually kind of shocking, not many characters in Baby Steps do get their own time to have their own monologues for a very long time in a given episode. And Nabai actually did. He got to think a lot in his mind, and throughout majority of this episode with his reactions to some of the things that happened, you could kind of understand what he was thinking and what he was trying to do throughout the entire episode. So in terms of the editors and the production team of this episode, they did a very good job with showcasing Nabai's emotions through his actions and movements, because I was able to understand what he was trying to do without him even having to speak. And when he did speak, that was an added bonus. That was just fucking amazing. I was like fangasming when I saw that, because just to see how it's not just Eii-chan that's always getting the spotlight, but other characters in a match, it once again shows you how Baby Steps can keep a very original atmosphere about it that doesn't feel like it's being bogged down by the same thing over and over again. And that's a perfect example of this episode, because Eii-chan, this is like the first time, or kind of the second time since he's fought Nabai, and this is one of the very few times he's had to deal with an opponent that really just targets his weaknesses and just goes in on him. Like, I mean, if someone's attacking your weaknesses, that's going to be fucking hard to deal with. Like, I mean, if you, let's say, suck at hitting to the left side of the court, and they keep striking at you for that left side of the court, like fucking you over, that's going to hurt you. It's going to hurt your ego, it's going to hurt your playstyle, it's going to hurt your mentality. I mean, it's just going to hurt everything. And that's kind of what Eii-chan usually does to his opponent, and now it's being done to him, so he's actually feeling the exact same pain that he normally feels, or what he does to other people, onto himself. Which is kind of cool. I like that. So Eii-chan is experiencing what he does to other people. And most likely this is going to be a way for him to grow to realize that he also needs to be weary of people doing the exact same thing he does. Because the greatest enemy, I think, to Eii-chan is someone similar to himself. And that is Nabai. Because Nabai, he breaks things down, he writes things down, he analyzes the situation, what, Eii-chan usually does, and then he uses certain weaknesses in their playstyle to be able to use against him, and that's kind of what's going on with Eii-chan. For instance, he always uses flat shots to be able to kind of finish his entire play to where he could score a point, which I did not expect that. I did not think Eii-chan had that big of a fucking weakness. Like, did anyone really expect Eii-chan to have that big of a weakness? I'm willing to bet it was very apparent that Eii-chan had that weakness. Like, I'm willing to bet every time he tried to score a point, it was always going down the middle. Like, if I was to go back and probably look at Baby Steps and look at previous episodes and matches that Eii-chan has won, I'm willing to bet it would be a flat shot. I'm willing to bet it would. And it's kind of scary if you think about it like that. So, Eii-chan had such an obvious weakness, and Nabai just keyed in on it and broke it apart, and now Eii-chan's having to do other shit to try to figure out how he can beat him because he can't use his signature moves. Which I thought, Eii-chan was more spread out with his entire abilities when it comes to playing matches, but apparently he really focuses hard on his flat shots, which Yeah, like I said, it's surprising. I did not think Eii-chan was that dependent on one certain thing. So yeah, I mean, he says that he could, but he would be more passive. If he was to get completely rid of his flat shots, he would become passive, and that would be a very bad outcome, because he needs to stay on the aggressive if he wants to take out someone like Nabai, because Nabai, he's the type of player that will change the pace up, fuck everything over, and he's also the type of player that is willing to drag out the matches. Like, that's kind of what type of player Eii-chan is. He kind of turtles the matches a little bit to where he can kind of get his own rhythm going and then fuck the entire opponent over, and that's kind of how Nabai is as well. So, kind of playing passively is a very bad outcome for Eii-chan and Nabai in some way, if he was to do it as well. But this is where the skill gap is starting to show between both players, because Nabai has many years of experience, Eii-chan only has a couple years, but even though Eii-chan is an amazing player, we're starting to see the differences in terms of experience and strength with their playstyles when we look at someone like Nabai in this episode. So tell me your thoughts in the comments below. You all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.